Okay, that's our first main riff from the intro. So we're gonna have the open A bass note. We're gonna have 9th fret of the G string. And we're gonna have the 7s barred on the D and the G string. So we're gonna have open, then 9, 7, 7, going D to G. So, and then we're going D string 7 to the open A bass again. Now we're going to take the first finger down to the 5s here, and we're going to go G5 to D to open A. So it's, and then we're coming back up to the 7s. We're going to go 7 on the G, 7 on the D, and then open, open on the A again. And that one rings into the new measure, which kind of starts it over again. So it's like. Now this time at the end we're going to go. So we're going to go 3 and 5, it's a C power chord. And then we move to the B in the bass, the 2nd fret. So that's why I like to use the pinky on this. It helps me reach that lower chord there to the A bass, and that starts the thing over again. It ends up going like 5 times through that whole sequence. So we got. And see that note right there, that A note that goes over into the new measure that starts the new one, so you don't have to hit it again. It's like it's already been done. So it's like. Okay, so like I said, it goes 5 times through that. Now the last time it's going to end differently. It's going to go. So this is one of those G's where you have the 3 up here, you mute the A, and you got open, open, 3, 3. So we got a couple strums on that G. Go to a D there. And we do that little chord thing again. So once again, that last one was. G, D. Okay, then we're into the pre-verse. Now this is gonna have a new riff. So we have the open A, and then we have a 7 and 9 on the D and G. We're gonna bring that out to the 7s and back. So, and then we're gonna come to both 7s on the D and G. To the 5s and back. 7s, 5s, 7s. So this one's like a power chord shape. You pull that one out. This one's like a double. Kind of like that. So we got. So this time we had an A before the chords, and then that 3 to 5, 3 and 5, 2 to 4. So we got. Okay, then our verse starts. It's got the same type of feel. We're going to switch to this A power chord here. We got. So it starts with the A, bass note, open, and then we got the open and 2, where we're going to the open and open. So it's. Then we're going to come down to this D chord here, open, 2, 3, starting on the D string. We're just going to take that first finger out and back. So we got. So it starts on the A, goes to the D. We got. Now after this, we're going to hit these 2 middle strings again a couple times, a little D power chord. Jump, jump, dunk, dunk. And then we're going to go to the A twice. So it's chords, and then we're back to the A. So once again, that second measure was. We got 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Okay, then we're going to move on up to the D chord. So we got bass, D, and then we got da-da-dum, da-da-dum, and then 2 more chords. And you can kind of go for the open middle strings. C power chord, 3-5-5, starting on the A. And you could just go to a G power chord if you want to. Tab I saw says this one, but it's kind of hard to reach. You could do it though. But it could be just that if you want to make it a little easier. Either way, and then kind of sounds better that way. Has that big AC/DC ring to it. Now we're going to come up to this E chord, E power chord. We got 7, 9, 9. You can use the open up here a little bit too. We got. So we're doing the same type of thing. We're doing the 7, 9, 9. You could use whatever. You could use one finger, but we're going to those sevens down here after we move that up. So do that a couple times. Got bass and then da da dum da da dum. And then you have 2 more chords and kind of just some open strings, maybe the 5th and 4th string. As you jump down to your D to A. And you could do those here. You could do it like that as well. Or down there. Okay, and then we're going to have. So the last time of this one's going to go to the G chord. We're back to our intro, but it's like the chorus now. So right, we go through all the other things. We get into the do that a couple times, verse. Okay, then we're going to get into the solo. So the solo is going to have a cool little double stops riff. We got. Okay, so we're doing the 7s on the G and B strings. We're going to pull them both off. This is like a half step bend with both of those up and down. So I pulled off to the 5s and then I went 7s and 5s. Then I went 7 on the D and a hammer on 5-7. So it's 3, 4, 1. So this next part is the 2 bottom string 5s. And then back to the 2nd and 3rd string 7s. Half step bend, back to just the 7s. And then he's got a pick scratch right there, and it's going to go 5 to 7 on the D. Kind of sounds like he hits an extra one here on the 4 to 5 on the D, so it's. So we have kind of a hammer on pull off, 2, 4, 2 on the D. 2 on the G there, and then kind of 4 to 7 slide on the D. So it's. Then we're gonna go. We're gonna have a 7 bend on the G, 8 underneath it on the 2nd string. Bend it again, and then we're gonna have a series of chords where we have the 7 bent and the A below it. So we have like 4 sets of 2 little in a row ones. So it's like. We come out of it with a kind of a bend down. So we got like a. So we have a 5 on the G, 7 on the D, 7 here on the G, back and back. So. Okay, then we're going to slide into this 9-8 on the G and B strings. Then 7s, slide into the 9-8 again, and then 11-10, and then we get into the 14-13, and we're gonna have a little thing where we slide up into it sometimes from below. So it's. Okay, so kind of a quick slide in there, and kind of covers one measure there. Then we're gonna have a. So that's 13 and 12 to the 14 on the G and back. Then we have this unison bend, 10 and 13 on the second string. 2 of those bends. Then we have one more. Then we have a little half step bend on the 12th fret of the second string, up and down to the 10 there. And then we have slide into the 14 with your first finger on the G string, and then hit the chord of 14 and 15. And then we're gonna have a pull off here, 17 to 14. So pull off, 15, 14, 15. A couple more chords there. Then we got a, so we have a 15 on the second, gonna bend the 17. We have the 17 underneath it. Bend the 17 on the second string again. Little one to second again. And then we have a double, like a chord thing. So 2 of those, and then 15, 18, 15 on the second. 17 on the G and back. Then we have, so we're gonna bend the 19 on the G with the 20 underneath it twice. And then we're gonna go bend the 19, 20 underneath it, bend the 19 again, so. And then there's a little 17 and a 20 at the end of this measure, the last 2 little 16th notes. So we're gonna have it 17, 20, 17 on the second, bend the 19 on the G string, and go down with it, and then, so we had 17 here to the bigger 19, and then 19, 17, 19, 17. Okay, so the whole solo we got. We have 2 bends on this 20 up here in the second string. And then a little 17 before this last couple measures here. We got, so we have a 17 and a pull off. A little bend on the 20 on the second. And then we have a little 17, a full bend on the 20. Pull off 20, 17. 2 bend ups on the 20 there. And then we have 17, pull off on the second, bend the 19. Then we have 17 and 19 on the D, 17 here to 19. Okay, and then the only other things we have to talk about is like the outro, and there's a little bit of this riff that goes. So it's bending the 15 of the second string, and then hitting the 17 on the smallest string there. Down, and then 13 to 15, goes like 4 times. Okay, I'm not gonna mess with the outro solo, but the outro chords are like A, G, A. You can do a little bend on that 3 there if you want. C to D. Eventually it stops there and it hits a C and holds it. Angus rips out a little bit, then you go to the D. The very last thing you do is the A, G, A. Okay, so I'm gonna try to go through that solo one more time. Okay, so that's the intro to Have a Drink on Me by AC/DC off the Back in Black album. So we're going to slide from the 7 to the 9 with the ring finger on the G string into the 8 on the second string. We'll give those a little vibrato, hold them out for a while. So we have the 7 to 9 to 8. We're going to take that 9 back to 7 to 5 real quick on that G. We got the 7 on the D string, so it's 7 on the G, 5 over here. You could do like kind of a hammer on to the 6 sometimes, or a little half step bend on that 5 on the G string, so it's got that 7 on the D string, and then the A bass. So here's where we do one of those 5 on the D, G, and B. Hammer into that 6 like an A7 chord. And then A bass to those 7s on the D, G, and B strings from a D chord. So we got, we hold that one, and then we go. And then we're back into our riff. And then again. And we do that like 4 times. Then we're going to end with. So that's like an A bass to a C power chord, 3-5-5 from the A string down. Back to that A bass, back to the chord, back to A power chord. And Malcolm's part underneath. So Angus is doing that, and Malcolm starts going with the band, and then it's going to go A to D, and then A bass leading into the. So if you're thinking about Malcolm's part, you're like, and eventually you go A to D, A, C, A, C, A. Okay, and then we're gonna get into the main riff. We've got that hammer thing. You can also use the A bass with that. 2 A basses, and then the D chord. So, and then the riff. And then A, C, A, C, A. See how you can hammer in there sometimes too, instead of just doing a little bend, however you want to do it. A, C, A, C, A. Now the next time, you might jump in and add that D bass to that chord there to make it sound bigger that time. A, C, A, C, A. Okay, then the verse is going to start. It's going to go. So what happened there was like we had open A with 5 on the D string, and we kind of hold that for a second. And we go 4-5 with the A bass still. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we go 5, 5, 4, 5, and 7, and when you're not really hitting this string, you're gonna still keep pedaling that A bass. So it's. So it does the same thing 4 times in a row. What's happening is the bass line and the, I guess Malcolm's chords behind that are like A to start with, like that, and then they go to G, bum, ba-dum, da, and then D, bum, ba-dum, da, 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 back to A. So you have those things working together, and then we're gonna go. So 5, 5, 4, 5 with the A bass, and then A chord, ba-da-dum. And we're gonna pick up here, and then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go to a G chord there. Same thing to a D chord, and then bum, ba-dum, ba-dum. So it's like kind of a 1, 2, and 4. We're gonna go F. And some of these chords you can kind of hit some random open strings, and and it still sounds really good in this key. So see, I'm kind of hitting a whole bunch of open strings on the way from F to G. Okay, and then we're gonna get into the B riff again. And again. And then that's the one you might go hit that D bass and to get into that last one. C, A, C, A. Okay, now we're gonna get into the solo section. We're gonna go E power chord to A power chord for a while. And this is where Angus is taking a solo. So we did 3 of those, and then G to D. And once we start doing that A chord after the first E, they're like, a lot of them are on upbeats. Watch out for that. This one's on up. Okay, then the second time through, we're gonna do basically the same thing with a little different ending. So that one's gonna go 3, O, 3 to the E chord. And then this third one's gonna be just like the first one. And then G, 2 bars, D. And the AC/DC G chord is normally where you have the double 3s down here and you have the big 3 and you're muting the A string. And usually the AC/DC D chord is like the D going down, not really having that little happy note down there. That way you go back and forth between these power chords real quick. So it's like O, 2, 3. You could even add the A bass note sometimes. Now we're gonna have the G, 2 bars, D, and then we go A. We're gonna hold that, and then Angus comes back, but he just kind of stops there. He doesn't do his chords, and then they're starting to go dum dum dum. Okay, so what happens there is you got... He starts doing those quicker, and then he starts going... He only goes that far. Okay, then we get into an A to D thing. And then G to D. And that goes 7 times, and then we finally go A to D. And then Angus does some ripping lead fills and stuff. A to D. We do that 3 times. And then it kind of has a thing like a... You might do like a O, 2, 2, and take those 2s out. Dum, dum, bum, 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 da-dum. Okay, have a drink on me, AC/DC. Okay, so what we have is a D shape down here at the 11th fret. We're gonna hit the chord, and then we're gonna hit the 3rd string 2 times, so it's... So we do that 4 times, that extends over a couple measures, so it's... And then once you've done that 4th one, you're gonna go... So chord and bass note, chord and bass note. So... Okay, then we're going to switch chords to this 11, 12, and 10. That's a minor shape there. We got... So that was dum, 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 dum. And Then we're gonna go to this 14 with the pinky, so it ends up being an 11, 12, and 14 chord there. So we just do one of those, and we do the third string there, and then we go. We're gonna do that 14 back to 12. And when we get back to that 11, 12, 12, we're gonna go 2 notes in that bass and then chord with 1 note each. So it's. Okay, so that's. Let me switch chords. And then that whole thing repeats. So it's like. Okay, and that ends up going 6 times. Now, after a few times of that, the other guitar is going to come in. It's going to go B power chord. Okay, so we hold that B a little bit. That's B5. That's 2 on the 5th string with 4, 4. And then we go part of a G chord. 3, 2, 0. And this is like a D chord with an F sharp bass. 2, open, open. We're going to have those chords a lot in this tune. We go to that E power chord there, O, 2, 2. So we have. Then next time we're gonna have the chord B, and then we're gonna do more of chords on this. G, that 2, open, open, and then we got. So that's how we're gonna pop that A bass in with that B chord, and then we're gonna go. This time we'll go big 3, and then D string, G string. Do that 2, O, O again to the E, and then we have this, that A bass again, and then the band's all gonna come in. So there's a couple different ways of doing this 2, O, O. If you want to, sometimes you could go 2, 5, 4. Sounds kind of big that way, and it gives you a little bit different of an inversion type thing. And you could do for a G chord, you could just kind of do those big 4. You should also do like a 3, 2, and 5. Make those kind of match, like 3 stringers. Gives you a different ring to it. So you can decide which ones you want to do. Could just be easier that way. Okay, and then we're going to have like, this is going to be the chorus later, but they're not doing a chorus yet. We haven't got to the verse quite yet, but we got. So that's our B chord, and then we're actually going to hit the A bass with those other 4s from the B chord. Then we're going to go G chord. And that was that 2, open, open again to E. Then we have this little riff. So that's 2 and 4 on the D and G. I'm going to go to that open D and back. And we can include those 2 opens on the bottom if we want. Okay, then we're back to. So this time we have a little different fill. We kind of slide from the 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so that's 11 and 12 up there in the G and B. And we're back to that. Okay, now that sets up the verse. Our verse is going to hit this B power chord and slide up the neck. We're going to go. Okay, so that's a D power chord. We can use the A bass on that too. So open, open, 2, 3. So we got. We jump to the A after that. So da da dum dum. Upstroke on that A. So. And that was like a check. Upstroke on the A to E there. A to E. And then G to E. Okay, so it's. Okay, so it's 4 times of that. Let's say we play a couple times together on that. 3, 4, and. Okay, so like I say, 4 times on that verse, and then we're going to be back into that. Okay, so this next verse we're just going to do twice. So 3, 4. And then we got that chorus. And then we're into the solo. The solo is going to go. So it's like an A, and then just put in that 3 on the second string. Upbeat on the G, upbeat on the D. Could be just a D power chord. And it's like 8 times of that. So it's like 2, 3, 4. And then we're back to a verse. So we got. Do this twice. So this is the big, for those about to rock one. Okay, so G, G, D to A. So it's. We'll do it again. It's actually 3 times. And the last one, it's going to go G to 1 D there at the end, and then to A. Okay, then we're into another solo. So we got fire. And that's our solo section. So we got down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, and then G, G, D, A. Okay, so it's like and 3 and 4 and at the end of that one. So we got 2, 3, 4. Okay, like I said, we got 10 of those. I'm not going to do the solo in this lesson, mostly rhythm here. We're going to end this kind of thing with. Okay, so that was just kind of some G, G, D, A, a couple extra A's. So it's like A. Okay, then at the end of the song, we're going to do like a B power chord up here, 799. Real fast strumming. Goes down to the A. Down to the G. And on that one, you can do that 2 in the bass with the D chord. And then E. And at the very end, he goes fire. Wait, that one more B chord there. Okay, for those about to rock, AC/DC, we got. Oh, and this thing has an ending we need to look at. So the last time of this one's going to go. Okay, so it has some. So we have another chord, bass, and then we start doing chord. Okay, so the very last one all the way through is. Okay, so that's the beginning of Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution by AC/DC from the Back in Black album. We're gonna have this riff 1 and open, G string 1 and open on the 2nd string there. We're going to the 2 and 2 in the same 2 strings, G and B. And then 4 and 3 on the same 2 strings. So 1 and open, 2 and 2, 4 and 3. And then we're gonna hit the 2s, but we're also gonna hit this A bass. So that's why I'm doing these with my fingers up here in the beginning. Later we'll get into big chords, we won't need any fingers, but for this intro it's kind of soft a little bit, you know. Kind of eases into it. Okay, so. And then we go to that A bass. And then we're gonna hit that 4-3 with the A bass again. Little bend on that big 3. To an E, and then. So that second time we're gonna go to the little bend on the 3, up to the E power chord, 7 on the A string, 9 on the D string. Okay, so we just repeat that a few times. We got and he always slides it down there. Okay, and then we get into the big chords. We're gonna have E to A. And then this one's gonna have like the A power chord part with the 4 and 3. So if you think that sounds kind of weird, you could just do the 4 and the 3, but it's like. Okay, so E, A. It's kind of a E minor 7 with an A bass, I guess, kind of thing. A. You could kind of think of it as kind of a B chord too, kind of a B minor type thing. But it's really just part of that kind of blues scale thing, these 3 different chords. So A, B. A. You can either go up here to that E chord again, or you can hit the low one too. So we got 3, 4. Okay, then we're going to hold that one a little bit. We're going to get into the main verse. Here we can go. So we have a kind of a pickup, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So there's 1 E power chord right before the new measure. So it's 3, 4 and 1. So we got the 2 and then the O to 4, back to the O to 2. Little bend on that 3 to the A chord. Okay, so it's going to go 2, 4, 2, 4. And we're going to do that pick up a note again on that E. So it's 3, 4. Okay, so we do that 4 times in a row, just the exact same thing. Then we're gonna come up here to the E power chord, to the D power chord, big B power chord, down to E power chord again. E to D again, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so we got to pick up on that A again. So we're gonna have E to D, B to E, E to D. And 1 and 2. See how we had the and of the 4 there? And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So once we hit that 1 and 2 and, we're back to that main riff. Another verse. solo rhythm is basically the verse. You could go to that 4 there to make it a little different. 4 in the A string. Or just so that part's kind of the pre-chorus, and we got the chorus. This is kind of an interesting chord. It's kind of, you don't see that all that often, so it'll take a little bit of getting used to. Maybe it took a minute for me, you know. Okay, then at the end we're going to have a double chorus. We're going to have a triplet feel. It's going to go. A, so E, E, A is the triplet. The last one's going to go to D. A, then A, 3, hold that a little bit. You got a quick E there. So let's play some of these together real quick. I'll count it out. We're gonna come in on the 3 on this one. So I'll say 1, 2, bum, bum, bum. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2. Okay, then we're going to play this one, the big chords. 1, 2. Okay, let's go into that verse thing where we got after the 4, the and of the 4, we got ba-dum. And we do that 4 times. So after the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then we have these chords, E to D, B to E, E to D, and then da-dum-dum-dum-dum, riding on that A there. So 2, 3, 4. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, chorus. At the end you got that. Okay, so that's the beginning of Let Me Put My Love Into You, AC/DC, from the Back in Black album. So we have the 7 and 5 here on the A and D strings. We're going to the 5 and 4 and back. So we got, hold that, do it again. This time we're going to go to the 5, 4, and then to the A power chord, open 2, 2 there. after the 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we can add this E bass note after the riff. And that'll have like an E bass before the 5/4 and before the power chord. So we got. Okay, so that's kind of the heavier one. Now you have Angus over here doing this higher one sometimes as the thing progresses. It's like a. Okay, so that's 9 and 8 on the G and B strings to the 7s and back. And eventually you get into that. So big open to the 7s, into the A again. Okay, so it's like part A is the one without the big bass note, and part B is the one that has the big bass note. So it's like 2 A's, 2 B's, and then the verse starts. It's like 2 A's and 2 B's. So it kind of goes back to no E bass note when he starts singing to kind of bring it down a little bit, and then it pumps up halfway through. And then we have the pre-chorus. We got an E power chord. We're going to go. So chord, and then bass, bass, chord again. So. And we got a quick little bluesy run. We got open 2 to 4 to that 3 there, and then slide it on back on that G string. 4 to 2 to open, pull off there. So. Okay, so it does the same riff when we go to the A. So it's E in the riff, A in the riff, E in the riff, and then A, A. Okay, and that takes us into the chorus. So one more time in this pre-chorus, we got. Okay, and then the chorus is going to be this D power chord, open 2 and 3, A. And then that E is a little ahead of the new beat. So it's like 2 beats each on these. With this one, 4, and so you hit a little early on that one. You don't hit on the 1 of the new measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4. So we just hit the 2, 3, and 4 on that E power chord. So 2, 3, chorus. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Last one, 3, 4. So that when you do wait till the downbeat of the new measure. Okay, then we're gonna have part B again. So that was. Okay, so we actually do that 3 times right in there, and then we're gonna have our pre-chorus again, the E thing, 3, 4. Back to the chorus. Okay, there's a build up there leading into the solo. The solo's rhythm is going to go. Okay, so E twice, and A, E, A. So you have like 4 times of that, and then the last one's going to chug on that A. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like a double chorus. You end up doing like 7 of those, and then you have you'll hold for 4 beats on this one, 4 beats on that one, and then we're gonna have. So you can go to the power chord on these two. And then we wait a while, drum fills and stuff. A at the end. Okay, so let's take a look at everything real quick. We got. That's our part A, and then part B is with the E bass. And then you have that higher one. Okay, and then we had the pre-chorus. Chorus. Alright, those are our main parts, and then our solo thing was how to build up. Okay, it does that 4 times. The last time it'd be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and chorus. Okay, everything's kind of the same there, and it kind of ends with. Which you could have this too.